As we have a look at that prelude into the DA's final push, their final rally to woo the voters. We see shades of blue this morning, Susanna, but essentially what are we expecting from the DA's essence in their manifesto?
Well, we're really going to see how they try to consolidate those messages, both pointing out what they believe the voters need to change from and giving glimpses as to what they offer the voters in return. And they know the core issues so well. They have done elaborate internal party political polling. They know how the voters, counting such an important voter base for any political party, they know how they relate to the different issues. And we've seen the main thrust of their campaign, every home should have a job, very crucial part of their campaign, but it is their task, and also all political parties are using this through their final rallies. There's a huge floating voter base in Gauteng, and their task is to swing a few 100,000 or a few tens of thousands of those additional votes, because the outcome in Gauteng specifically can be quite marginal, and we've seen national indications, more fluidity in the party political scene than we've seen in a long time.
All right, Professor, let's hold it there just for now to get exactly that of the voter sentiment as well as the support sentiment. Our reporter Natasha Perry is taking us through what's been taking place live on the ground. She has been giving us an up-to-date information regarding to some of the supporters, what they're hoping for, also expressing what the DA has done for them. Natasha?
Well, welcome back to the Dobsonville Stadium. We just saw an electrified performance by Ricky Rick, but I'm now joined by ladies who come all the way from Limpopo. Just tell us, what time do you guys leave Limpopo to make it here on time?
What did we leave?
What time did you leave Limpopo?
We leave at 6 o'clock. Yesterday, 6 o'clock.
And how are you feeling? I mean, you're in Soweto, you're in Dobsonville. This is your leader's hometown. How are you feeling about being here, and what are you expecting from Mmusi Maimane today?
We are expecting a lot from Mmusi Maimane. We want a brighter future, jobs creation, everything in Limpopo. We want development.
What particular problems do the people of Limpopo face, especially where you live?
Water, roads,
corruption,
yes, and jobs. Yes.
And maybe the Limpopo government hasn't done anything for you guys?
No, there are a lot of corruptions there. They didn't do anything. Yes.
And we are not safe anymore at our country. So we need losing my money to stop all this, because we are suffering.
And what particular change has the DA actually made in your area, wherever you're from in Limpopo?
A DA for drinking for water, for Limpopo, for drinking water. All people who drink water for DA, for Mmusi Maimane. And I love you, Mmusi Maimane. And Mmusi Maimane, I love you. For much for another people who take for money for another people.
Buaka song.
Very kabulela very rigile chalete ya VBS marantata waruna uelwela Mmusi Maimane ene rtai bo papa ba runa le ba bagolo ba tla ikreya chalete bona ba dile ba chalete riri Mmusi Maimane le rina ba lateli ba yena riri re ba tloko haye nani ba hayani Limpopo. I'm come from Limpopo, Zanani, for Kingdom, and I love all people, and I love all. Amanda, Panda, Pamba.
Okay, so they've said a number of things, saying that, I mean, the problems that they face there in Limpopo, water problems, there's a lack of clean water in the various places that they live in. They've said that the VBS scandal, I beg your pardon, has actually affected them very much. And because of this, they'll be voting for the DA. Let me just bring in one more person here. What do you have to say? Are you excited about being here? What are you expecting from Mmusi Maimane as he delivers his speech?
I'm expecting that in the next few weeks we are going to have a new president, which is Mmusi Maimane.
Well, there you have it, South Africa. She says that come or after the May the I beg your pardon, after the May 8th elections, they'll be expecting a new president to actually ascend to the union buildings. But as for me here in Dobsonville, back to you in studio, Shante.
All right, Natasha, thank you very much for taking us through that. Lots of love for Mmusi Maimane coming in this morning from some of his supporters. That being said, let's actually have a look at the DA's performance as a whole in the run-up to the elections.
Yes, they have really been campaigning very hard. It has been quite clearly, a very well-resourced campaign, and they drove together lots of different messages. They had varied billboards and varied posters, much more, I think, than what was noticeable from other political parties. We compare that with the ANC, for example. The DA was much more message-driven, and the ANC much more leader-driven. All those eggs in the Ramaphosa basket. The DA trying simultaneously to get that balance between change, what they say have to be changed, and then what to put in place of that. So it has been a very high-profile, in places, very controversial campaign, when they beamed images on ANC headquarters in Johannesburg, and with messages on corruption, and the other message, also a very controversial one, that the ANC is killing people. And so they didn't shy away from controversy at all. But that is also the way publicity works. That's a way to get themselves and their media, their campaigns into the mass media.
Is that the best way to handle electioneering and campaigning so close to an election?
That is one of the big debates in messaging, whether the messages should be positive or negative, and probably it's not to be faulted on those technical campaign-driven grounds, because it got them a lot of attention, and a big part of their campaign is negative campaign, and they emphasize that, not in as many words, but saying they have to point out what is wrong with the ANC and ANC government and what needs to be changed, and that takes negative messages.
If we have a look at where the election rallies are actually being held this weekend, we mentioned off air that all three of the rather bigger political parties are going to be held here in Johannesburg or in and around Gauteng. Specifically, let's look at the importance of the DA holding theirs in Dobsonville and Soweto. Just the past couple of weeks leading up to elections, we've seen protests, we've seen total shutdowns of some of the roads, of residents in Soweto complaining about infrastructure, complaining about crime, corruption, complaining about unemployment, the very same messages that the DA says that they will be promising to fulfill come the May 8th elections.
Yes, of course, the service delivery issue, it really came to a head and was illustrated so vividly about 2-3 weeks ago when we had the big Alexandra protests, and question of who was responsible, the previous administration that was ANC or the current coalitions, that type of coalition administration under the DA and EFF, etc. And those issues really come to a fore. But overall, and that is at a national level too, those basic service conditions are so crucial. And in this election, I believe more than in any preceding one, we have seen local issues coming into national elections and provincial elections. In many places, almost like a local government election, issues that are being put on the table. But it also shows the serious need in South Africa in wake of collapse of so many and failures in raising the quality of public services, basic things, essential services, and that coming in a big way into the national election. And yes, Soweto epitomizes much of the neglect and failures over quite a number of years. And very interesting that we have Dobsonville, Orlando, Ellis Park, the three stadia for the three big rallies today and tomorrow, DA, EFF and ANC. And Dobsonville, of course, we know that the DA also had their closing rally in 2016 in Dobsonville, and part of their big campaign is to show that the extent to which black South Africans and black African South Africans also support them. And it's also easy for them, Dobsonville, because we know leader Mmusi Maimane, that is his place of birth, and according to newspaper reports, etc., his parents still live in that area. So it's easy symbolical value that the DA also derives from that.
In terms of the protest action that we saw, and of course the blame game that seems to have taken place between the ANC and the DA with regards to the situation in Alexandra, how better could both political parties have had to handle that?
You know, it would have been an amazing gesture if all political parties could have put aside party politics and petty politics in the face of such serious need for delivery at the level. Imagine how much all political parties could have scored from a situation like that if they could have come together and said, we realize that many other problems are in political succession. In future, we are probably going to see much more succession or even alternation in who governs in particular areas historically, and then intergovernmental between local and provincial and national. It is really in cooperation between those spheres of government that solutions are to be found, and it is a national crisis of service delivery. And I think all political parties would gain and would have gained if they could have demonstrated that we can also work together in the interest of citizens whom we have to serve in the first place when it comes to these crucial issues.
In terms of that, one would necessarily say that political parties would have to show a united stand. They would have to show a united front. And the beginning of the year, or the end of last year, we saw somewhat of the DA's dirty laundry spilling out into the public with their very public spat with Patricia de Lille, and of course her then leaving the party. Do you think that the DA has been able to recover from that, not only from what we've seen in the media, but of course the encore effect that this may have specifically on their stronghold in the Western Cape?
Yes, there's no doubt that it impacted the DA's support in the Western Cape. I think it was 5 years ago, the previous big election, we still have the billboards, big posters with the three women, Patricia de Lille, Lindiwe Mazibuko and Helen Zille, the three women going strong for the DA, and that is disintegrated totally. Regarding Patricia de Lille, yes, she played this so well for her own profile and against the DA in this. She could have been working really for the ANC because it really exposed fault lines of the DA so well, of a political party that had grown relatively well, whose growth was largely concentrated in pulling in support from other small political parties. De Lille was former Independent Democrats was swallowed, but it wasn't really a going concern by the time she went to cooperate with the DA. That party had already failed across the Western Cape and was really dependent, the Independent Democrats at that stage, on small enclaves of support around the Northern Cape and Kimberley area in particular. And so the DA at that stage was a life buoy for her. But those fault lines and the support bases that she had brought into the DA, those persisted, and in due course there was going to be fallout. And Patricia de Lille she loves conflict and she knows how to use it, also for her own new political parties. And so that was a small indication of how these coalitions and rapid growth in opposition parties, where they had not yet been managed on a big scale to eat into ANC support. The EFF is doing that. The DA a small extent, yes, but its growth over the last decade or so has largely been through cooperation and absorption of small political parties.
Speaking of coalition, early on in the week, Julius Malema, Commander-in-Chief of EFF, had said that they would not necessarily want to be having a coalition with the DA, but they would still want possibly to have some sort of partnership with Herman Mashaba. How interesting is that?
It's fascinating. The coalition talk is a game to analyze, specialize in its own right. What we do know is what people say today, political parties say today, is no indication of what they're going to say tomorrow or next week this time. It is all going to depend on how the different and exact proportions of each of the political parties pans out and how they see possible cooperations there. And we have seen so many revelations, investigative reportage as to the exact way in which the DA, Herman Mashaba's DA in Johannesburg municipality, and the EFF have been cooperating, and possible benefits that there had been in that for the EFF, and keeping that together. So, and it also relates to establishing broader bases and cooperating with business interests, and it is such a vexed issue as to how these alliances are going to pan out. And we've seen the DA's campaign, much of it is also scaremongering, negative campaigning, keep the DA and EFF out. They are going to form a coalition. It is a possibility should Gauteng, for example, national, chances are, but neither are these possible coalition necessity situations will arise. But should they arise, it can happen in any direction. And it could even be that the EFF is a sizable minority party, but they will, if the situations of the ANC slipping below outright 50% majority arise, then the EFF will be a kingmaker, a potential one. If it's just by a little bit, some of the other small parties can do that. And then the EFF and the DA can actually hand together to oppose the ANC again.
Let's have a look at the somewhat portrayed leadership style that the DA has seemed to evolve from the beginning of the year up until the run-up to elections that we've seen from DA leader Mmusi Maimane, and of course also, the backlash that they've gotten from political parties saying that Mmusi Maimane does not run the show, that he's somewhat a puppet within the DA.
That is so hard to tell if one is not right inside the DA, and certainly they guide those internal operations very, very closely. But I do think Mmusi Maimane has grown in his leadership style, and I think there has been substantial fallout with Helen Zeller. Previously, that was the favorite argument, that she's running the DA behind the scenes. We know by now that that is definitely not the case. We know people like James Self and others have been accused of running it. What I see on the surface is that Mmusi Maimane is quite a strong leader, and that he is also, through what one can engage from his public appearances, that he does give quite a bit of leadership, and that he inspires people. We've not evidence, but we've seen little illustrations by the adulation people express in these accolades they give. So he has got a strong support base. He has built that up over the years, and no doubt the DA is a party with significant white support and white leadership internally, and some of them are very controversial coming up. The racist dimension is there. The old National Party from way back in our history, but they do not entirely go away. Much of their support, despite the NP formally having merged at that time around 2000 with the ANC, on ground level, the bulk of the previous National Party supporters had gone over into the DA, and that will only be eradicated generally through generational change flowing in. But it is a party that is evolving all the time in very interesting ways, and that is linked to the leadership that they offer there. But it is also a party that is really struggling to grow in the context of especially the Zuma factor that had disappeared out of the ANC, and the DA, I believe before that, before Zuma left, not having anchored their attacks on Zuma sufficiently in the ANC base. But that was something that opposition parties generally suffered from.
In terms of the DA's manifesto and their main calling cards in this election, in promising or hoping to promise one job in every single family, is that enough? Do you think that's enough to woo the voters, to create change and to grow this election?
You know, it's definitely not enough. It wouldn't be enough if any political party said that. What I think may count with voters is that it is a tangible undertaking, job in each home. That is something that each home will be able to judge from, whether that is actually materializing, and whether that is enough or not. Overall, no, but it is a little bit of courage, I think, that is expressed in there, in that it puts the jobs campaign right at the heart of its campaign. In the ANC, for example, we have not seen that centralization of concrete undertakings regarding two jobs. Concrete, what ANC is very scared to be called to account afterwards, say, but you promised this or that. And so we see mostly when the ANC has been campaigning, in comparison then with this particular case in the DA, we hear the ANC say, this document speaks to jobs. We have this plan, we do this. And that doesn't make any undertaking to any specific units like a home or a family.
Sure. Professor Susan Boyson in studio. She will be with us for the next couple of hours or so as we take you through that build-up of the DA's final push in Dobsonville and Soweto this morning as they deliver that rally. It is expected to officially begin just past 11 a.m. this morning. We'll continue to give you updates on that. The ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has come face-to-face with disgruntled voters in one of the three biggest and oldest townships on the Cape Flats. Here, he also engaged in what the ANC dubbed the final push to woo undecided voters in the area. He was also confronted with challenges ranging from crime, unemployment, housing shortages, and the chaotic and sometimes dangerous metro rail transport system.
President Cyril Ramaphosa crisscrossed the townships of Mitchell's Plain, Gugulethu and Khayelitsha in 7 hours. In these crime and gang-ridden areas, not everyone was pleased to see him, but he didn't shy away from the issues.
To that end, we established the anti-gang unit. Now, since we established it, gang violence and gang activity has gone down by 24%. It means that it is working, and it means that now we are after the gang leaders, the gang members, because, as I said when we launched it, we want to put them behind bars.
Another bone of contention is high water bills attributed to the installation of new water meters by the city of Cape Town. Others complained of renting houses for as long as 60 years without ever being granted title deeds. Undeterred by all the complaints, Ramaphosa expressed optimism that his party would perform better in the Western Cape than in previous elections. Meanwhile, in Durban, former ANC President Jacob Zuma defended his decision to campaign for the ANC, saying it was his right to do so. This after criticism that he could impede the ANC's campaign due to corruption allegations against him. Zuma, accompanied by Party Secretary General Ace Magashule, slammed those who questioned his involvement in campaigning. He also denied allegations of a plot to oust President Cyril Ramaphosa.
I don't know why are they person. I can't tell you what provokes that person, because I am an ANC member, and people should generally know the processes in the ANC. If you are an ANC, you do everything that all members do.
ANC Deputy President David Mabuza is confident of unity in the Free State, where party factions are at loggerheads. He says the ANC will seek common ground with all disgruntled members. David Mabuza was accompanied by ex-Minister of Minerals Msebenzi Zwane, accused of corrupt activities in the province. They met residents in Dihlabeng who expressed concerns over service delivery and housing.
The ANC will unite. We are still fresh from Nazareth. There's one step forward, two steps back, but finally we'll find our feet, we'll unite.
Thousands of ANC members are expected at the Ellis Park Stadium in Johannesburg on Sunday for the final Siyanqoba rally.
We do not just speak, we let every voice in our nation find full expression in language and in culture. We do not just teach, we empower all people with education. We do not just bring you the news, we place you where the news is happening. We do not just entertain, we take you on journeys. We do not just broadcast sport, we create an arena for sporting heroes to inspire you. Ours is not just a job, it's a calling to ensure that everyone in our nation is informed, educated, and entertained. We're able to do this because you do your part. SABC TV licenses, it's all made possible by you.
Welcome back. You're still watching the agenda as we take you through the prelude of the elections, gearing up the final push of rallies from all the political parties this weekend. Today, the DA hosts its rally currently taking place in Soweto in Dobsonville. Do you believe that the president of the DA, Mmusi Maimane, or the leader rather of the DA, Mmusi Maimane, is set to take the podium just after 11 a.m. this morning? Still in studio with me is Professor Susan Boyson as we have a look at all things political parties. Have they done enough? Have they wooed the voters? And will they be able to bring change? Will they be able to fulfill those promises that we've been seeing? What sort of a DA do you think we would be seeing post-elections?
Well, it is all depending on exactly what kind of result they're going to get. And it's going to depend in the end as well whether the ANC hangs onto its outright majorities nationally and in a province like Gauteng, and whether the DA hangs onto its Western Cape majority. There's a good chance that it will, but with a reduced majority there. So in a province like that, we are really going to see a DA that would have to fully counter the fact of DA's relative lapse in relation to the proportion of party supporters, DA, ANC, in a province like the Western Cape. It would really have to perform. We know they've got good governance reports in the Western Cape, but they would have to perform even better. And they would have to turn that party, and that applies more broadly again, to connect to communities better, consistently between elections, because unless that fundamental trust that ordinary voters still have, aided by the ANC, having been in government for 25 years, trust built up that these government services are delivered typically by a certain political party. The DA, in order really to grow across the provinces, would have to be connecting with communities at that level far more.
In terms of connecting with those communities and possibly trying to get further reach on communities that they possibly don't have a stronghold, what sort of metros could we anticipate the DA actually being keen on wanting to have a coalition with?
political parties, the DA, we have seen that the DA really, they are very flexible. All of the political parties are incredibly flexible when it comes to manufacturing a majority to govern a particular municipality, metro, bigger municipalities, provinces, maybe national, unlikely, but maybe there. So ultimate flexibility there. We have seen the political parties talk in all directions as to who they can possibly cooperate with, who cannot. On the one hand, there's the campaign, and there's acrimony and aggressive stances towards any political party. The day after the election, everybody will be happy and will be handshaking around the IEC Centre in Pretoria, and will be checking who wants to negotiate with me. Even those little parties that could have 1 or 2 seats in this province or that province as we go along. But the only certain thing about coalitions is the talk before the election is not the same as the talk after the election.
Definitely. In having a look at the run-up and the way that the DA has handled its campaigning, we mentioned earlier that it has, somewhat seemed to have taken a negative or a more robust, a more controversial approach. With that being said, do you think that they've covered enough groundwork and that they've used their position in electioneering to the best way in which that they could portray the party before elections?
I think the DA, as far as a opposition party, the nature of the DA goes, the party that has to fight against the former liberation movement that might have lost some of its gravitas but is still dominant and possibly remaining dominant through the elections. I think the DA has, on those technical campaign-specific grounds, has run a pretty professional, all-encompassing, multimedia, multi-message campaign.
All right, so just taking you through, those are the visuals. If you have just tuned in, you are watching the agenda. We're giving you the live coverage as we take you through the build-up and, of course, the duration of the final push from the DA, live from the Dobsonville Stadium this morning. We do have our reporter on the ground, Natasha Piri, who's also just been taking us through the plight of some of the supporters in attendance this morning, and, of course, their plight and showing their support of the DA, hoping for change, hoping for a job in every single household. Also speaking to some of the young people in attendance, hoping for employment, hoping to be able to have a job opportunity once they do graduate. So these are just the live visuals. If you have just tuned in, welcome to SABC News.
Good morning to you Democrats. We are winning and once can't win. The DA is ready to surprise.
All right, we're going to take a short break and we're going to continue giving you that live coverage of the DA's final push in the Soweto Dobsonville.
Freedom Day is about having a voice. It's about dignity and respect. And most importantly, it's about being treated like a human being. SABC News celebrates 25 years of freedom.
We're explorers. We always have been. Endlessly curious, always looking for answers, for new frontiers, for new stories. Because that is who we are. From script to screen, from yelling action to taking you on a journey. Radio producers, script writers, on-air presenters, news reporters, sports analysts. We spend late nights creating captivating storylines and earlier mornings keeping you informed, educated, and entertained. For us, it's not a job, it's a calling. We do this and more because you do your part. SABC TV licenses, Made possible by you.
SABC News is producing more than 150 election-related programs ahead of the May 8th election. If you think our content is not in line with our editorial policy, direct your complaints in writing to complaints@sabc.co.za. Complaints on election-related broadcast content should also be lodged with ICASA's Complaints and Compliance Committee by sending an email to bmashihu@icasa.org.za or call 012 568 3233.
We've seen that Brent crude oil rise about 30% this year alone.
Brent crude that's going steadily firmer speaks to a global economy that's in good shape. What we don't want to see are supply interruptions or sudden spikes.
The Bank of Athens has become Growth Bank. It plans to be a bank using digital and personable relations with its customers in the agricultural and food value chain space.
We're a lucky bank in that we are small. We're already working with artificial intelligence to allow us to manage our customer data.
Agriculture is a business. If we're going to take people, millions of them out of poverty, we've got to turn agriculture into a mega sector that works for everybody.
Welcome back. You're tuned into the agenda. Welcome to SABC News. If you have just tuned in, well, we're taking you through the live run-up to the DA's final push, as well as other political parties' push the final weekend before those May 8th elections. Still in studio with me is political analyst as well as Director of Research at Mapungubwe Institute, Professor Susan Boyson. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time this evening, or rather this morning. So essentially, we were talking about the DA's campaigning just before we went off air, and again, let's just have a look. We spoke possibly on what's been dubbed the negative side, but let's just once again get into how robust they've been and how controversial they've seen. Many drivers, pulled up to the building on the right-hand side of at Lutuli House to the visuals and the words of saying the ANC is dead, and we do believe that was a DA campaign.
Yes, indeed. Robust is indeed a word. Often in South African politics is quite a euphemism of being very aggressive. And yes, in the case of the DA, there's a mix. Sometimes they really speak to the truth. Other times they play with the truth, manipulate those words. Otherwise, they really play on fears that they have picked up through their own internal monitoring and polling to see that these are things that are on voter minds that voters wonder about. And then that's when we see campaigns, extreme ones, and that's slightly manipulating the truth, where it says, for example, careful, the ANC is coming for your land and your jobs. Other places they just play on the possible coalition with between ANC and EFF and say keep the ANC EFF out of government. So there's really quite a few of those ones, and they also say where they play on the ANC's list and some tainted names on that list as we send criminals to prison, ANC sends them to government, or some variation on that theme. So they really were identifying very carefully what the fears, the doubts, uncertainties of voters are, and then they develop messages to play on that, like on Lutuli House, also the message of playing and manipulating the ANC slogan, say let's grow corruption together and not the economy together. So they clearly had a team of very professional people working on their messages.
All right, so we're going to come back to our conversation in just a bit. So the APC is also hosting its closing rally in Vosloorus in the East Rand. This is also ahead of the 2019 general elections come Wednesday. The APC president and APC leadership have been moving around the provinces to persuade voters to support and vote for the APC. Our reporter Abogile Dumako is there covering the story for us this morning. Very good morning to you. All political parties seem to be pulling out the stops this weekend. What is the APC showcasing this morning?
Good morning. Certainly the APC will be gathered here at Vosloorus, Ekurhuleni. This is where the President, Themba Godi, is expected to wrap up his yet comprehensive campaign, he says, that has been taking place throughout the country. And of course, they are delayed by an hour. They were supposed to have started here by 10 o'clock this morning. We've seen a few people actually making their way to these local showgrounds here at Vosloorus, wanting to hear what the President has to say. We wonder what time they're going to start, because we have not really seen even the President himself arriving, except for these few people that are behind me and those few members of the party singing struggle songs. And of course, it's been quite an excessive, way leading up to these elections. We've seen Themba Godi going as far as the Eastern Cape, where he says he believes that South Africans need change in the political landscape, saying that the job that he's been doing as the chairperson of SCOPA in Parliament should yield some positive results, should earn him some votes, having set himself a target of about 1 million votes that will see him having about 30 members in the National Assembly. I don't know if that's going to happen, looking at the numbers of the people that have come here thus far, as opposed to what we've seen happening in other, campaign events that have been conducted in the country. So we really would like to see if the numbers that we see here are going to be reflective of what Themba Godi had said. We'll see 1 million South Africans vote for the APC.
Thank you very much, Abogile Dumako, for SABC News, just taking us through what we can be expecting from the APC this morning. Well, the countdown does continue for DA leader Mmusi Maimane to be taking the podium just a couple of moments from now. And essentially, we have more or less spoken, and you've said that the DA, somewhat has really spoken to its following and to its voters.
Yes. I think they have got a very good grasp on what their core voters are looking for, and so they go in and consolidate the messages, the ideas that those people want to hear. I think the DA has also made a close study of the so-called floating voters, and by all research available, the proportion of floating voters, uncertain voters who want to go and vote but believe they do not quite know who to vote for, or at least give the idea, report that they haven't quite made up their minds. And there's a large proportion. And in Gauteng, which has about a quarter of South Africa's electorate jointly, there are reports that say about 1 in every 2 voters who want to go and vote, or maybe voters more generally, saying that they are not entirely sure who they want to vote for. Nationally, we know about 40% of voters say they're not happy with any of the political parties. And it's in these circumstances, and this possibly makes this election very unique. I think that body of floating, uncertain voters who want to vote but you are not quite sure who to vote for, I think that is bigger than what we have ever seen in any election. And that's where we get this specific messages playing on ideas that these voters would have reported in public opinion surveys. All the bigger political parties have done their big ones.
Do you think that political parties have capitalized on those floating voters?
They are still working on it, and maybe that is a big part of what these rallies today and tomorrow are all about. They have been trying to work on those, but whether they have capitalized on it, that we will probably know by early morning next Thursday.
And let's also talk about, post the elections, the different types of DA that we would be seeing, and the strategies that we could possibly anticipate come May 8th and post.
That will be fascinating to see, and the election outcome is really going to determine what kind of DA we're going to see afterwards. Is it really going to be this one integrated, one party for all South Africans, like their T-shirts and their slogans want to indicate, or is it going to be a party that clearly grows in one demographic or demographic more likely area much more than in others? And for a DA that wants to grow and wants to make progress into local government elections a few years down the line now, they would have to decide what is their growth area. But it's quite probable that they will want to promote and further this idea of one party, integrated, one party for all, because we know unless the demographics are overwhelmingly more black than whites, overwhelmingly more youthful than slightly older generation, parties are not going to grow. Any political party has to establish very solid bases in those communities if they want to grow. And that is, of course, besides the fact that they establish bases in communities by speaking to those issues, we talked about that earlier, issues on the ground, and to connect with communities on the ground around those issues that are pivotal to those communities.
In terms of growth, we saw the press being held yesterday from the DA. The spokesperson, Salima Lati, was saying that 2016 elections definitely showed that, change is possible. In terms of what we've recently seen take place in Alexandra with regards to the protests and the back and forth and the go-between between the ANC and the government on whose fault, more or less, per se, what happened in Alexandra, or who takes accountability, and who do they report to? How do we actually see the shift in not necessarily one political party coming forward, taking ownership, saying that these are the problems, these are the issues that shouldn't have been fixed? How do you think that game and how that played out between the political parties as well as the DA might possibly be changing voter sentiment, specifically within the DA and some of the metros that they would have possibly been holding in Gauteng?
Yes, indeed. That's such an important part of campaigning. We've also seen it with the ANC, where they really want to tell people how coalitions do not work. Coalitions are dangerous. President Ramaphosa said that recently in Alexandra, basically point that coalitions don't work because they don't work. But the ANC itself is trying to make people fearful of potentially having coalition governments. But that kind of fear-mongering that we see then from the ANC side, all political parties are clearly using that kind of tactic, is really to try to secure an outright majority, to make voters realize, or try to get them to realize, to think that coalitions are not good for government. The way we have seen them play out around some metros, they have really given much more instability, but they have simultaneously given more accountability and more revelations of what had been going wrong in previous administrations. So coalitions are probably one of the biggest ways, the prospect of coalitions, biggest way in which change is manifesting itself. And opposition parties, when they say they can win at the stages, apart from areas, Western Cape, for example, is really win in terms of coalitions and cooperation between opposition parties. And possibly, unless the ANC can reverse that, which they are trying to do in this election, it is going to be the type of interim configuration of government that we are going to see in South Africa.
In terms of the configuration, if we have a look at some of the leaders and the role play that we've seen and the shifts before elections, we saw the stepping down of Salim Simanga, a former mayor of Tshwane, to now being moved or wanting to apply for that post of the DA premier candidate.
Yes, that is fascinating. That was one of the strongest candidates, or the strongest, I reckon, the strongest candidate available for that position, given that he had a base, already established a base in the Gauteng province, in one of the metros. But yet it is interesting, and this is so interesting regarding all of the political parties too, that there is almost not a candidate with a totally clear governance record that people can put in place. And so whichever candidate the DA was going to push in as candidate for premiership or at whatever other level, and other political parties, we see it too, even in ANC, there are always questions, and this one of the curses that come with having been in government, that there are almost always skeletons to reveal.
We're going to hold it right there. We're going to take a short break here on SABC News. You're watching the agenda. We continue to give you the build-up as well as showcasing you the final push from political parties as they woo voters this morning and the weekend. Let's take a short break.
Hello, I'm Nana, and I want to tell you a bit about Economics Unbound. It is a live studio current affairs program that brings an understanding of the economy, how it operates, and how it is managed. The show seeks to include ordinary South Africans in purposeful and well-informed discussions about the economy.
The whole corruption and having to pay people to get businesses, it's like killing our businesses.
While providing them with enough information to make better economic and financial decisions.
And we need to start thinking of new ways of creating new structures that are relevant at the time.
Through this program, audiences can look forward to 30 minutes of deep and tough questioning on the issues of the week.
Why do you think that our economy lends itself to such collusive behavior and such concentration of monopolies in key sectors?
Solani Mkiva says that they believe that the king should be released and that they are not being opportunistic.
The last 4 years we have been engaging with government. It cannot be a post-colonial government that begins to jail a king in a context of what actually happened.
Bobby Solomons, he's the spokesperson of the Alex Shutdown Committee, the multi-billion rand Alexandra Renewal Project. Nothing came of that.
Community wants to know what really happened to the money.
The creative director of the label, Mansu, that of course means black is beautiful in Sesotho. What has been your experience in that regard, given some of the more established labels that you have managed to work with?
It is hard. 15 years is a long time. There's a lot of sacrifice for your family to make for you.
This is the thing.
Wearing without the brief.
This is it this morning.
On Trains Travel, we bring you a full guide on all things lifestyle related. With so much to discover, we give you comprehensive reviews of places to visit, music, travel, and food. We also explore the arts, whether on or off stage. All this and more. Be sure to tune into Trends Travel Saturdays at 5:30 p.m.
We've seen that Brent crude oil rise about 30% this year alone.
Brent crude that's going steadily firmer speaks to a global economy that's in good shape. What we don't want to see are supply interruptions or sudden spikes.
The Bank of Athens has become GrowBank. It plans to be a bank using digital and personable relations with its customers in the agricultural and food value chain space.
We're a lucky bank in that we are small. We're already working with artificial intelligence to allow us to manage our customer data.
Agriculture is a business. If we're going to take people, millions of them out of poverty, we've got to turn agriculture into a mega sector that works for everybody.
Welcome back. Well, as the countdown continues to dear leader Mmusi Maimana's final message to with voters ahead of Wednesday's elections, we now cross to our reporter on the ground, Natasha Piri, who has been taking us through the sentiments of some of the voters there this morning. Very good morning to you, Natasha. What essentially is happening on the ground? We do believe also that Mmusi Maimane was supposed to speak just after 11 a.m. What's the delay?
Voting once again to you and to the SABC viewers. I'm with DA members and supporters, various range of people, both young and old here at the Dobsonville Stadium. And this is just before DA leader Mmusi Maimane actually comes into the stadium. We've seen him on the outside. We've just seen some biker groups entertaining the crowd, and people really are electrified. Let me just speak to somebody here. Hi, ma'am, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
So where are you from?
Glen Vista.
And so you came all the way from Glen Vista to come here to hear what DA leader has to say. What are you expecting from Mmusi Maimane?
Everything that is already done. The same, more of the same.
And I mean, this year marks 25 years of our democracy. Has anything changed for the better, or could you say that the DA has actually brought about change?
Everything has changed for the worse. And Mmusi Maimane is the hope of the future.
Are you of the same sentiments and the same views?
Yes, I am, and I'm youth leader for Ward 23. And yes, the DA will bring change.
So, I mean, in your ward, is it a DA-run ward?
It is a DA-1 ward by Sarah Vissler. She's our councillor.
What practical things have you actually implemented within your ward, within your area and community?
Service delivery. We have the best service delivery, lights, you know, all of that. If there's any problems with electricity, it's dealt with. It's just our area has improved so much thanks to the DA.
Do you expect the DA to take over?
We better. We have to. It's our only hope to reshape our future, and especially for the youth.
And let's just say it doesn't. I mean, Mmusi Maimane doesn't take over as president of the country. What happens then?
We got to fight, and we got to make sure that we can change our country, because it's the youth. It's the youth that is at risk at the moment. There's no jobs. It's hard to get into tertiary education. It is us that need to change and reshape our future.
You talk about unemployment, you talk about, education. What other things do you think are a problem here in South Africa?
Well, for me, it's climate change. I definitely find that as one of my biggest concerns, as well as also the drugs, corruption, obviously. And education is, we need to educate our youth so that we can get jobs and improve our lives.
Thank you so much. Let me just move on to Umama here. Mama, where are you from? Oh, okay, she seems very shy. Here's another young leader here. How are you?
Mna ndinol babalo ndisuka eJimston emikhukhwini edukathole. So ingxaki yam ukuba sizovotela i-change sidikiwe yi-ANC kudala isithembisa from 1994. Eklasini besifunda si-154. Ukuba ngumntana oslow uzova kanjani? Kodwa bona abaphaphezulu abantwana babo bafuna kwi-private school. Bathini ngathi? Bahlale bazovotwa bayasipromisa all the time. You'll get bursaries, ntonto lezo zinto. Sidikiwe ngoku sifuna utshintsho. Futhi size apha sizosupporta uMaimane ngo-100% nje omkhulu. Noma swinanga sizoqhubeka silwe because at least unenyani akanazimfihlo akanabuyuruyuru. Mawumele uyofuna umsebenzi funeka uvule imilenze kuqala. Njani? Asikwazi uphila kanje. Sifuna silwele uMaimane.
A lady from Dugatole Informal Settlement saying that not much has actually been done, within the area. As you know, that Dugatole is actually under Ikurileni, and she says that the ANC-led government in the area is not doing anything to help them. She's here to support Mmusi Maimane, and she says even if he doesn't win, they'll continue to fight, and someday this country will be led by the DA leader. Let me just bring in another lady. Before I actually bring you in, I see a young chap here. How are you?
Fine, thanks. And you?
So where are you from?
I come from Cape Town, but now I'm living in Joburg.
So you came all the way from Cape Town to come, enjoy the DA rally?
Yeah.
And what do you expect?
I'm living in Joburg now.
Oh, you live in Joburg now. And, I mean, what's the mood like here today?
Happy and, I don't know.
Are you enjoying yourself, though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you. Mama, where are you from?
I'm come from Cartonville. Ndikhathele ANC sifuna kube notshintsho, sifuna sivotele uMaimane. Dala sihlale emikhukhwini since sivota kuthiwa kuzaba notshintsho asikafumani izindlu nangosokhelwe itoilet. Since simelwe ngetoilet qha asikazifumani izindlu, sihlale emikhukhwini, sihlala eyadini siyi5 or siyi6. Singene etoiletini eyi1 asinambani. Sikhathele my dad ANC party DA.
Well, another lady here also complaining, raising the same issues as well. There's lack of service delivery from where she lives. They have no housing, no proper sanitation. And I mean, these are just basic service delivery needs that they actually want. And they think that the DA government will actually, will implement that. Let's just talk to this lady who's actually riding on the bike. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. So are you enjoying yourself? I can see you on a bike now.
I love it. I love it.
Talk us through the rally. What are you expecting to do?
It's mind-blowing. It shows you we all have the same heart for our country, first of all, and then for our party. That's why we all turned up to show support for our leader and all our leaders. We're going to take Gauteng. We're going to take Gauteng. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, there you've heard it from the lady here with the blue hair saying that she's going to take Gauteng, or rather the DA will win Gauteng. Of course, let's take it back to the people once again. Mama, I can see you're very eager to talk. We've heard everybody else say that they are tired of the ANC-led government. Nothing has happened for them this past years. When Mama uziva njani?
ANC hiding nix and Asia shelter fella. Renalo 20 years ridula mikuku yalindelani. Humkhali masipa. Habari kinyetsili di toilet. Habari kinyetsili di sila. Libisiri bari dira la matata fela and bana le lishano lelo le sinambuti. Rene kopa at least DA reduce or iragele man. Renale 20 years ridula mikuku mazanga afedile. Arona re kokotela re kokotolla.
Okay, well, that was Umama. Can I just please apologize for language first and foremost? But just basically, she's agitated, she's aggrieved. She says that for the past 20 years, her situation hasn't improved at all. And therefore, she's here to support the DA. She's here to support their mandates. And she says that through them, they will bring change. She complains of her area, saying that there is, once again, no proper sanitation and no service delivery. She's been living in a shack for over 20 years. And she somewhat believes that her vote will probably make a change. Let's just go to other people, engage other people. Hi, sir, how are you?
I'm good, yourself?
I'm good. As a resident of Gauteng, do you think that the DA will take over from the ANC?
Of course, yes. As you can see the vibe and around Gauteng as well. We are going to take Gauteng province because now ANC is under 40%. It's running at 38% now. And there's no way that the ANC can take this province again.
Let me just rope in another lady here. I see you looking very fashionable with your glasses here. I was just talking to a gentleman here, and he's of the view that the DA will win and the DA will take over Gauteng. Do you think that's the same?
Yes, definitely. I believe that. Definitely. If we all stand together, DA will definitely do it.
So, I mean, this is the last leg of campaigning for the DA. What kind of a message are you expecting from your leader, Mmusi Maimane?
Well, as he says, he wants the best for everybody, and everybody will get a job. If the DA is part of it, everybody will have a job, and the country will just be a happier place.
As much as you guys have been highlighting the DA's successes, can you also highlight their failures as well? I mean, they're not perfect also. Other parties are also, they're not perfect as well.
No, they're not perfect. At the moment, I don't have any failures to tell of, but I'm sure there are, as many other parties have their failures. But I know they won't fail us like the other parties are failing us.
Thank you so much. Let me take the conversation back to the gentleman. She has said that, yes, the DA is not perfect, but she hasn't encountered any failures. I mean, as much as you highlight their successes, that this is what the DA wants to do, they want to create jobs, what failures do they also have?
At present moment, there's no failure because we're not in government in Gauteng. So look at Cape Town, the good governance that we have under Helen Zille, there's a premier. We want to bring that mood in Gauteng so that people of Gauteng can however have a good governance, and all the monies of the government will go to the people, because the ANC failed dismally for 25 years, looting manage people so that they can just go around and get away of that. But when DA govern this province, people will realize the good governance of DA.
Okay, so you use the Western Cape as an example. I mean, we've got a new party that emerged from Patricia de Deville, the Good Party. Do you not think that she will actually pose the threats to the DA?
Not at all. You must understand that this is national and provincial government, and to have a seat in the provincial government, you must have 16,000 plus votes, and nationally you must have 44,000 plus. Patricia de Deville doesn't have that capacity. So she's down with numbers. So she won't even make it to the provincial level.
Okay, lastly, Mama.
nna ke tswa Waterworks ene e sa le re fitlile mo Waterworks mekhukhung ke EDA fele re bonang support ya yona ene re lebelletse se seholo ho tswa ho yona bana ba rona ha rena di-clinic mo ha rena next re ipeile ha rena plaque because re tswa ka re Soweto ra sotleya Soweto ga renta ha gona se se jang re kopa fela e re create-ele mesebetsi bana ba rona ba gona ho ya dikolong because gona vele re na le bana ba di-university ra sokola ho ba patalla dikolo re a sokola bana ba palama ho ya makeisheneng hore re thola hore ba gone ho thola thuto e right for bona
well, a lot of people here just talking about the same thing, saying that the only party for them or the only hope for them is the DA. Let's just try and get closer to the entrance. We are told that DA leader Mmusi Maimane will be coming in, at any time from now. But I mean, just to paint a picture for all those who are at home who aren't here at the stadium, we can see seas of blue. I mean, supporters have literally painted the Dobsonville Stadium blue with their blue regalia, and of course, the bikers here. Lots of entertainment here at the Dobsonville Stadium. Mmusi Maimane is actually right behind me, so if you'll just try get closer to him. As he actually makes his way out to actually address, the people of Soweto. Lots of DA members actually happy. The stadium is quite electrified here. We'll just try get a bite from him, try doorstep him as he actually comes out. But as you can see here, the crowd actually cheering for him and cheering for him to actually come out. As you can see, some there busy chanting Mmusi Maimane. If my camera operator can just walk with me close and closer as we wait for Mmusi Maimane to actually come out. And here he is greeting some DA supporters and DA members here in Dobsonville. Lots of people are excited, the crowd cheering and cheering him on. And there he is, DA leader Mmusi Maimane coming out, greeting the crowd. And of course, you know that this is the official closing, the final stamp for the DA. They're closing off the election campaign. This is the last time that DA leader Mmusi Maimane, his last time to actually convince voters to vote for the DA. As you know, the DA has been saying that over the past 25 years, not much has actually happened for the people of South Africa, and they're planning on implementing and bringing change, as they say, a better life for all people, all and sundry in South Africa. There are visuals there of Mmusi Maimane going through the crowd, just greeting the crowd here in the stadium. And of course, him saying thank you. He's very grateful, to the people of South Africa. This is him greeting people right now. And of course, DA members and DA supporters here at the Dobsonville Stadium in Soweto are actually very happy to see him, very excited to see him. We've got the likes here of, your DA MPs and DA officials, the likes of Ethel Chollop. We've got Natasha Mazzoni, who's here. We've got several other leaders just following Maimane here through the crowd. And of course, as you can expect, the crowds are very, very happy. So a lot of people are very happy. Let's just try and get one person to actually talk to right now. Let's just see if we can just try and get Natasha Mazzoni to come speak to us. Just trying to get Natasha to come speak to us right now.
And of course, as you can imagine, she's actually greeting the crowd, and people actually ecstatic to see their leader, Mmusi Maimane, here. If I'll just ask Bongumusa to actually pan our camera, and we just speak to Natasha right now. Okay, I've got her. Here she is. Natasha, thank you so much for joining us on the SABC. This is the final stamp. This is it. How are you feeling right now?
Look around, I've never been more excited, I've never been prouder to be part of the Democratic Alliance. I'm walking with the president in waiting. I'm so honored to belong to this organization. This is going to be the government come the 10th of May.
So it's quite interesting what you say, that you're waiting for the next president, which is Mmusi Maimane, which you referred to. How confident are you that the DA will actually win the national elections?
I'm feeling very confident. I look around here, I look at people on the ground, I listen to what people are telling me. South Africa is desperate for change, and the Democratic Alliance is bringing that change.
So Natasha, let's just walk. As we walk and talk together, do you believe in, poll predictions? The latest polls show that the DA will actually remain stable. We've got another poll that says your participation will actually decrease.
I believe what I see on the ground. I believe what people are telling me. I believe that I have gone to every province in this beautiful country. I believe what I see here today, and that is people want President Mmusi Maimane.
And are you happy with your campaigning so far?
I'm very happy with the campaign. I think we brought out a positive campaign. The campaign was fun, it was young, it was energetic, it was everything that we can offer our country.
Talk about a positive campaign. The ANC doesn't think you've had a positive campaign. They've actually labelled your campaigns as disgusting, Natasha.
Well, I wouldn't expect anything else from the ANC. They're not supposed to like our campaign, but their actions speak for themselves. The fact that they executed state capture and tried to sell off our country, that's disgusting. I think the Democratic Alliance has proved how you win an election fair and square.
Natasha, just talking to, people here, they've said that, no political party is perfect. But, as much as you've highlighted the failures of the ANC, what failures and what successes does the DA have?
I think you can see that where the DA governs, we govern better. The Western Cape receives award after award. Where the DA governs, we have low unemployment, we have clinics being opened, we have services being delivered. The DA is far from perfect, but where we govern better.
You've highlighted the successes. You've highlighted all the successes. Can you highlight the failures for us?
I think one of the failures we've had is that we're not able to deliver services as quickly as we want to. We are working to bring up budgets to that we have enough money in our budgets to make sure we deliver services. And that is direct instruction from our leader, is that we have to concentrate on service delivery.
Are you not scared, of parties like the Good Party or the EFF actually being on the increase or being on the rise? Because, that may somewhat affect the DA in a way.
I am concentrating on the DA. I'm concentrating on bringing in as much DA support as we can, and I think people know that where the DA governs, it's a better life for them, and come election day, they're going to go to the ballot box and make sure that we remain in government.
I know you're concentrating on the DA and ensuring that the DA actually gets a win, come May the 8th. But this battle between you and Patricia de Lille, the IC has ruled that you must apologize to her, and seems as if you've taken her to court. Are you not worried that this might actually take the image of the DA?
No, I'm not worried about that. Patricia de Lille must concentrate on her campaign the way we're concentrating on ours. The next 4 days is all about bringing out the DA votes and the DA support, and that is my main focus.
And your last message to South Africans, this is the last time that you could actually convince them to vote for the DA.
I ask South Africans to remember that when you cast your ballot, you are the most powerful person in the country, because you are deciding on your government. You now have the choice. Are you going to vote in a corrupt ANC government who has failed to deliver for 25 years, or are you going to bring around change that is so desperately needed? And I encourage you to be bold, be brave, and let's change South Africa for one South Africa for all.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Thanks for your time. Of course, that was Natasha Mazzoni of the D.